it's important to start with failures. I think we all have them. In terms of sustainability being very clear in its need, both by so many players from government, private sector, civil society, but the ability to actually integrate and embrace that complexity is quite often an insurmountable barrier. But embracing that complexity, and I think things like the Sustainable Development Goals give us that opportunity to gather around and have a common language. And I'll talk a little bit about language as we go through. But also, government tends to have leadership in isolation of business, and probably for good reason. Governance is critical, but there are certain elements of magic that can occur when you get good collaboration between the private sector, government, and civil society, where there's genuine collaboration, and through that, many things can occur that help. In that grey area that we see up there, in that grey area between the disciplines is where a lot of the solutions are. And it's understanding the languages of business, private sector, what the community want, academia in terms of richness of research and rigour, but also transparency and accountability in order for these things to occur. And getting the user need right and the context, particularly in a local context, is critical, and it's often the failure for success. So I'll talk a lot more around the multi-partner collaborations and the way that this has been running in the Cities program for nearly 15 years, particularly that aspect of scaling up, building capacity and accelerating that collaboration so that there's projects that can be funded, projects that deliver high value and high impact, but are done in a governance context which looks at and appreciates and has anti-corruption as a driver through the process. And so that ethical city and that ethical practitioner and decision making is a key element. So this is the pipeline process that Liz went through earlier on. Lots of words, but I'll take you through each of the different 6 steps, which is just something that has formulated again and again through bringing together good collaborations that have a direct impact. And I'll use a range of examples of how that's worked with our projects around the world. Am I getting a bit of echo, or it's just me that's getting it? Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I'll sit here thinking I'm reverberating around the room while I'm speaking. Firstly, diagnostic. People don't often look through the numbers, understand the data, or understand the context, so that what they're focusing on is actually the best and most critical issue, or multiple issues that can be brought together into one focus. It doesn't have to be our tool, and I'll go through that shortly. It can be any diagnostic, but just getting, number one, knowing what you're focusing on and why. Number two, the collaboration to develop shared value is absolutely critical. There's certain ways to create trust, and trust is the currency of good collaboration and being able to deliver over time an implemented initiative or project from the scale of strategy intervention in the policy context through to the size of a precinct development that Lucia gave some examples of, scaling up to major infrastructure. All of these things require different partnerships and governance, but again, finding what to collaborate on, but finding shared value for all partners. And you hone in on that high value proposition and then move into the enabling environment. What are the bylaws? What are the different things that will help make it happen? The fourth element, forming good partnerships, and I'm a strong believer in non-traditional partnerships. How do you get civil society, the fourth P, people, involved in a PPP? How do you have that transparency? How do you make sure that it's transformative and you have engagement by the research sector to formulate and understand the impact so that it's beneficial to government, private sector, the investors, all those that need to participate and continue to invest in these things. And the means of implementation, again, coming to that ethical governance is, that's where a lot of partnerships can trip up. And again, it's a cycle. Once the project's implemented, being able to feed into more and more. So I'll give some examples. The diagnostic that we have developed at the Cities program took a range of indicators. We worked with 19 of our cities just to test and see how to bring key issues to the surface. I won't go into much detail except that about 20 cities that we worked with, and our next phase that we're going through uses the Sustainable Development Goals as the guiding metrics. This is a range of the different types of cities, so you can see different population sizes, different context in terms of area, just for a good mix. These are the top 20 critical issues, which may not come as a surprise, but there's a whole range of the ones at the top closer to being critical issues for the city. But across the spectrum, a number of these critical issues can actually connect with each other, and we've been able to initiate some projects in Melbourne using a consideration of poverty, unemployment, community understanding of climate change issue, safe pedestrian mobility, access to local employment, financial resources around greening of retail and city spaces for urban heat island effect as an initial process. So a whole range of different issues that actually can come together to formulate an opportunity that the retail partners, along with City of Melbourne and RMIT, have been able to move forward. Collaborative opportunities, creating that space. Sure, there are natural collaborators. We all know them. They like to talk with lots of people. They're usually part of strong networks. But there's actually a process and a language to understanding what does government need at a local government level in order for this to be a high value opportunity. What's the language of that? What does a state government need? What does a national government need? What does the particular slithers of the private sector need? When you're looking at civil society, and they're all different languages, but being able to bring that together in a way that can drive joint objectives, increase the value of what you're looking at, but also recognise successful projects that have occurred elsewhere and could be scaled up or applied with more partners, but also to form new ones. So the image we have there is Chocolatale in Porto Alegre in Brazil. It started about 10 years ago and was a way to take I suppose a slum area and go through economic development, increasing livelihood, increasing community network, but the main thing was land tenure and that ability to be a citizen, have an address, be able to actually have a water bill and an electricity bill, and to be a citizen that could operate and be taxed. These don't sound like normal issues we would face here, but in Porto Alegre, it's how you get recognised as a citizen, and the ability with that, formulating, getting water services, electricity, but a key component of that was that the community helped design and develop the process. There were strong business partners that helped form a recycling centre in the centre of the development, and that transition over 10 years has meant an increase in the economic level and activity, the health situation, but also the future and the opportunities for those communities. And it's become a model network across Port Alegre, and it's about scaling up those opportunities, and now that's, I think, used across 10 communities as a model, building that sustainability network. So getting the right environment for those collaborative partners to come together, understanding that critical issue, but being able to be fostered into partnership. Priority opportunities. You'll always get a good list of opportunities. How do you nestle in on the right ones for the right partners? And I think Lucia mentioned it's about getting the right partners for the particular opportunities that you look at. Sustainable development goals are good, and that shared value process, but trying to formulate some things that are at the edge. They're new collaborations that haven't been done before. And the example we've got there is San Francisco the Business Council for Climate Change. Its focus initially was around, well, how can we create employment programs for a whole range of businesses around San Francisco to support with climate change. It's evolved to a bulk purchase of solar installations across businesses, pooling their money across San Francisco and doing it at scale, at lower cost, and creating a whole industry benefit by collaboration by private sector to do those things that they wanted to do. It's housed within the Department of Environment in the city of San Francisco. It's supported, it's a strong collaboration with government, but it's business driving a process to make business more active in reducing greenhouse gas emissions for San Francisco. It's a happy partnership, but an unusual one. And it's now evolved to zero emission car facilities right across San Francisco that the different businesses are paying for and setting up. So again, at scale, they can start to introduce zero emission cars using the purchasing power and the, I suppose, the objectives from the private sector, but in collaboration with private sector. And there's an element of both transparency and accountability, but one of the key elements is the enabling environment. There in particular, there's a range of give and take by government to support the installation of, say, the solar panels or various things. Leeuwarden is another example in the Netherlands, which quite an interesting situation. This is an economic development focus where they've tried to renew the activity within Leeuwarden after the manufacturing declined with the global recession. And as part of that, building a very strong focus on intervention, which was quite brave. We're talking about economic zones where they've said EPA rules do not apply in this precinct. We want to attract investment to do a whole range of new technologies that look at water treatment and the like. But one of the key elements that came out of that was blue energy, where they take the differentiation between salt water and fresh water to create electricity. There's a whole range of innovations that they've attracted over $200 million to support innovation. It's created about 800 jobs. There's a whole lot of small and medium enterprises that have been created. But making that economic zone and that collaboration was a really important program. But that's the enabling environment. What things can make this work that's in the back pocket of government that can support it, but also industry players and associations. So partnerships, coordination and scale. I've talked about the different sizes in terms of the market forces and strategy, precinct and infrastructure. In Milwaukee is another great water example where it started with intervention and market force around water and a water-centric city, and moved to precinct development and renewal, and then a whole range of service industry and redevelopment of the waterways across Milwaukee, starting from a collaboration between public, private and civil society co-locating and working together. Attracting investment. If you don't get the investment that's going into these projects and that ongoing support, it's difficult to get the level of scale and activity that you're after. And so, again, a range of things that come into play. I'll just highlight again another APEC initiative in Ningbo, and that was a commitment by the 21 countries part of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation to look at sustainable urban development and infrastructure in this region, including Australia, signing up and working through to try and get more of these partnered projects that can make an impact together and to support the types of financing mechanisms that can make it happen to meet the acceleration in urban migration. And finally, means of implementation. And I might even point out Juliati in the audience from World Vision International and Australia as another. We're a World Urban Campaign lead partner, as is Juliati with the World Vision, and it's that means of implementation. Together we pioneered a focus on ethical cities, which then became part of the New Urban Agenda, and it's this means of implementation. The right governance and ethical decision making is critical, and there's a MOOC that's available that's been mentioned, but those sorts of things that can help consideration of the right decisions and avoiding unintended consequences. Critical. Measurable and transformative, and that's sort of where I'll finish in terms of there's a whole range of players that are partnering with us to look at building capacity across these 6 steps to make sure that we get more projects created across a whole range of cities that can be invested in, have high impact, and create value for multiple partners. And I'll finish there with a flag that we do have an Urban Scholars Program and internship program, and Julia, who's here up the front in the red, is our coordinator for that. If there's ever any interest, these slides will be available and you can get in contact. Thank you.
On our website.
On our website.